We're going to stay out west. Team that's doing a little bit better than the Clippers, although that may not remain the case for much longer. The Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies currently hold the 2 seed in the West. It is March 5th. Ja Morant is slated to miss at least the next 2 games. Dillon Brooks is slated to miss the next game. He got that 16th technical foul. Good. Go ahead and get that one out of the way before the playoffs. Good idea. And Brandon Clarke is going to miss the rest of the season. Pretty bad, 6 hours of news for the Grizzlies. All of that stuff came out within a few hours. And it's kind of laughable, all of it except for the Brandon Clarke injury. Nobody's rooting for a player to get hurt, especially a player, Brandon Clarke was really good for Memphis, and Memphis is kind of struggling with front court depth all of a sudden. They were already missing Steven Adams, and now, Adams should be back soon, but Brandon Clarke missing extended time, really missing the whole season. You hope he's back by next year, although it's a torn Achilles, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see. But yeah, now Memphis all of a sudden goes from being kind of deep to being really thin. And it's a shame, the Ja Morant stuff. I'm not going to personally speculate on it too much, but if we just review what's happened recently, the most glaring of which was the police report of Ja Morant, physically assaulting a 17-year-old boy and then brandishing a gun. And that was a police report. Make what you want of it. It's just, I'm not saying this, that, or the other. It's just something that came out and it was a big deal. And I don't like that the NBA almost, I felt like we were trying to get through these 3-hour broadcasts with Grizzlies games and just trying to gloss over it and just act like it never happened. But now we are talking about it. And, I think it's good. I think it's good. We cannot just act as though these things aren't happening. I think it was a month ago now, Ja Morant's buddies after a game against the Pacers. I guess there was it was an NBA game, so there's always going to be some pushing, some shoving, some heated exchanges, but they took it too far. And there was allegedly they were pointing red lasers into the team bus and insinuating that they may have had guns. There was an investigation. They couldn't find anything. Okay, whatever. Move on. Not really as big of a deal as the other things, but the screaming match with Shannon Sharpe in the middle of a game, I don't think that it really speaks to any one player. It's not really, it doesn't really fall too terribly much on Ja, but it's just a lack of maturity. It's just a lack of maturity, a lack of poise. You speak so highly of your team and you're so confident, and that's fine. You're fine in the West. That's fine. But you're not going to make it anywhere in this league if you're so easily rattled and you're out there picking fights with fans. I know Shannon Sharpe is a talking head, right? He's a big deal in our national media. And I'm sure I don't watch Undisputed, but I'm sure he's had some negative things to say about the Grizzlies. That's just, to me, that's just a terrible look to, in the middle of the game, have a screaming match. It's a bad look on Shannon Sharpe too, a grown man who's out there screaming at these guys. And then he gets to stay in the game. That was a whole nother thing, whatever. Just immaturity. And if you're Ja Morant, you're the best player in this team. You're one of the best players in this league, right? You're one of the 15 best players in this league. You're a superstar. You've got your own shoe. You're a brand ambassador for Nike and the NBA. You need to be the leader of that locker room, even if you're 23 years old. Okay. You need to be, you're going to be held accountable for your actions. And those guys, Dillon Brooks and Jaren Jackson and all those young players are going to follow your lead. And if you set a negative example, they're going to follow in your footsteps. So that was just a bad look. And it was the one thing that's happened that was out in the open for all of us to see, and it was just a bad look. There was this report that Ja got into it with a mall security guard. We didn't really get too much on that. I didn't read too much into it. I'm just saying, these little off-the-court altercations can't keep happening. You're an NBA superstar. Why are you even out at them all? Okay, what are you even doing? Okay, nothing good could really come of it. And then, of course, 2 nights ago, after the Nuggets loss, which there's a couple things here. For one, let's just pretend the gun's not even there. I'm going to say it kind of looks like he's intoxicated at a club, super late night, on the road in another city. You just got handed a big loss on national TV. You're speaking so confidently of yourself and of your team, and hours later you're going crazy, partying up in a strip club, taking live video in front of topless women and doing just reckless. It's just reckless. It's just reckless. And this is the gun aside. I just don't want to see that. If I'm a Grizzlies fan, I don't want to see it. If I'm an NBA fan, I don't want to see it. Okay. It's just ridiculous. It's just reckless activity. It's not somebody I would trust my entire franchise to. For Memphis, they've already done so. And so while I'm hoping he can turn this around, and while everybody's hoping he turns this around, and I think he's going to, I think the other night was big. And the fact that he can now maybe catch this, reel it back in. Hey, I've gotten way out of line. I need to come back down to earth, chill out, and just kind of, it's just ridiculous. And then we bring in the gun, and we're on Instagram Live hours after a loss in another city, at a nightclub, at a strip club, brandishing a gun, going crazy, acting like there is no care in the world for anything outside of this moment in this strip club. Like, I'm not saying NBA guys don't party. I'm not saying NBA guys don't do this, that, or the other. I'm a James Harden fan. Of course, I know. But you don't see other guys doing this type of reckless activity, and they're not advertising it, at least, and then the gun is just next level. I mean, amidst all this news that's swirling you, especially this police report with this 17-year-old kid. I mean, come on. Like, what are you thinking? And he's not. The simple thing is, Ja Morant's extremely smart, right? He's just not thinking. He's in another world right now. And it was really disappointing as a fan to see that. I mean, you don't want to see anybody do that, but this is one of the league's most talented, most special players. And, you just don't want to see that. Jalen Rose did a really good segment last night on it. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. A lot of guys have spoken on it. Obviously, Gilbert Arenas has spoken on it. Gilbert Arenas has I think a pretty poor take on it. I mean, it's almost like condoning this behavior, and it's just not good. Paul Pierce had some tweets about it. I get it, but those guys weren't out there, on social media waving guns, That is like the final level of this that really is it's too much. Even for the NBA, like the police report wasn't a big enough deal to get a suspension. None of it was a big enough deal for them to even entertain the idea that they could sit Ja Morant. Well, that time has come. He's now going to miss the next 2 games at least. He issued a statement, whether, take that what you will, that he's going to take some time away. I don't know what that means, whether that's those 2 games or it's a week or it's 2 weeks, who knows. Being that Memphis is wildly competitive and trying to make a pretty serious playoff push this year, I don't think it'll be too terribly long. That being said, I don't really know what to make of the Grizzlies without Ja Morant, right? Since the start of the 2021-22 season, there are 24 wins to 10 losses without Ja Morant. They're a pretty damn good basketball team, even without Ja Morant. Now, I'm not pushing the idea that Ja Morant's not valuable, that he doesn't need to be out there for them to play at their best. He does. This team has will really be looking for his offense when he's not out there. But the fact of the matter is, can they make it through a week without him? Can they make it through 2 weeks without him? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, the fact is they lost Brandon Clarke. They don't have Steven Adams. Maybe they're a little bit more thin than they usually were in those games without him. But in the games that he has not been made available, they've been, I'm not going to say just fine, but they've been okay. So I don't really know what to make of it. Brandon Clarke, I think, is a pretty big loss for them. Defensive rating with him on the floor is 108.2. Now, defensive rating for individual players, I don't get too high on, so I'm not going to like parade up and down over that number. It is a great number, but you have to think about if he's sharing the floor with Dillon Brooks and Jaren Jackson on those, then that number is going to be really good. But for a guy coming off the bench, he's really a special player, brings them just a little bit of punch off the bench. And like I said, without Adams, their depth now is looking a little bit questionable.